Everyone, now let's focus on some of the major criticisms that are made regarding marginal revenue product and this theory of deriving wages from this concept. Okay, so firstly, what we can see is that there can be various difficulties in calculating the marginal revenue product. So for instance, if you consider calculating marginal revenue product of a teacher or perhaps a chief executive or perhaps a cleaner, then you'll see that there's going to be problems in actually generating revenue outcomes that those actual jobs derive. Further to that, other examples could include, for instance, customer service representatives. The fact that they don't necessarily generate a revenue product, again, makes calculation very, very difficult, as it also does with other areas, for instance, such as business consultants. So it can become very, very difficult in actually attaining a value to use here. Our next point is a lovely one to consider, and the majority of students won't actually think about or won't focus on this because most students aren't taught this theory. And it's just about the theory of efficiency wages, and that really is that in some instances people will be paid above their actual marginal revenue product. Now, why is this? Why will a firm want to actually pay a worker beyond their marginal revenue product? Well, it could be perhaps because they don't want their best employees to leave to other firms, other competing firms. So it acts as a bit of a deterrent to actually move away from particular jobs. In other circumstances, having a higher wage offered to some people may motivate them to actually go above and beyond in their work. Okay, so there can be plausible circumstances that actually mean that some people will be paid above their actual marginal revenue product. Our next point, again, another lovely one, compensating wage differentials. And that is really that when it comes to these compensating wage differentials, there are some undesirable or even unpleasant jobs that people generally will not want to do. And because of that, it means that those jobs will trade at an additional premium beyond the marginal revenue product. So for instance, if you consider jobs on perhaps the London Underground, or perhaps instead it could be working in an abattoir, these sorts of roles, you know, they're not seen as terribly desirable roles, and therefore the pay that is actually provided to these employees really takes account of that. Okay, our fourth point here is about public sector jobs and public sector employment more generally. And who determines pay levels for public sector roles? Well, ultimately, it is the government themselves. They determine the actual pay levels. So that's a really, really important point here as well, that it is not simply just about the market that determines pay. Okay, and we also see that there can be non-monetary benefits of a job. So for instance, in teaching, many teachers enjoy the rewards of actually seeing their students do well and enjoy the relationships that they can develop with their students. In addition to that, when it comes to doctors, very, very highly skilled, highly talented people in helping their patients to actually survive and even thrive, again, there can be non-monetary benefits of a particular job, which means that actually they could perhaps earn more in other fields, but they choose to do something which has a positive social good to it. Okay, our next point is about imperfect labour markets, and within these imperfect labour markets where you face a monopsony employer of labour, a sole buyer of labour in a market, then there can be a breakdown between the actual marginal revenue product and the actual cost of labour. Okay, so this is another interesting circumstance that of course you will need to consider. There's other instances as well perhaps, and that could include trade unions. Now, trade union workers do trade at a slight premium against non-unionised other workers. Okay, so against non-unionised counterparts, unionised members actually earn a little bit of a premium. However, that is much, much smaller than it used to be. I think it used to be as large as about 15 or 16%. These days it seems to be about 5 or 6%. So there's another notable point there. Now, this isn't to say that this is every single point covered here. There's many other areas. For instance, when it comes to entrepreneurs and self-employed people generating their actual marginal revenue, productivity is really difficult as well. There can be problems in calculating that. Okay, so there's lots and lots of points. There are problems with this concept, but these are excellent evaluation points that you wouldn't be able to make in any labour economics essay, in just determining how viable some of these theoretical concepts that we're using actually are in the real world. Okay, super. Thanks, guys.